What's up, sons? It's Blind Ride with Son of a Tech, and today we're going to take a look at the Corsair 460x case. It's in the crystal line for Corsair, and that's because we have some crazy tempered glass going on, so stick around. The only real notable difference that makes this 460x stand apart from the 400C is going to be pretty much the tempered glass. And that means that luckily a lot of the good things that came from the 400C is kind of showing up here with the 460x. But taking a look straight away, you're going to see that we have the side tempered glass panel and then a tempered glass panel on the front. Thankfully, at least in my opinion, the back panel is still just going to be the aluminum. Now, I appreciate that because having a glass panel on the back just makes cable management ridiculously difficult, as if it weren't already difficult enough. So like I mentioned, it's pretty similar to the 400C. You're going to see that we have the power supply cover, or the basement area cover, and underneath that you'll also have your hard drive bays that'll hold two 3.5-inch drives, which in most configurations that I've been building, that gets removed straight away. Luckily, if you guys need extra storage, you'll still have three 2.5 bay drives on the back panel. Now, the only downside about this is it does make it a little difficult to get the back panel on if you decide to use the 2.5-inch drive bays on the back panel. The tempered side glass panel and front glass panel are held on by flathead screws that you can also use your thumbs on. Now, there's some grommets on the back of that and a little kind of washer to protect the glass from the screw, so you don't have to worry about damaging the glass. And while it is more difficult to remove than, say, the panel for the 400C, you have to keep in mind that this is tempered glass and it's a lot different of a kind of monster than that acrylic that you see on the 400C. It also means that you're also missing that quick use of the side panel where you could just open it up with the handle and call it a day. But when you sacrifice this kind of functionality, you gain a lot of aesthetic appeal. On the front, you'll have support for up to two 140mm fans or up to a 280mm radiator, or you could go with a 360mm radiator or three 120mm fans. In this configuration, I went with three 120mm Corsair SP120s as they're quiet, and it just looks better to me to have three in the front. Now, on the top, you're going to have support for pretty much up to a 280mm rad or a two 140mm fans. The complaint here to me is that really, honestly, if you're doing any kind of build in there, 280mm is too large. I would recommend going with a 240mm rad, which is what I ended up going with, and it just seems to function a lot better. Some of the other usual suspects are here from the 400C, where you have the magnetic fan filter on the top and the magnetic fan filter on the front. Keep in mind, however, that on the front with the magnetic fan filter, it's going to be harder to get to as it does sit behind a panel that doesn't just pop off like it does on the 400C. You'll actually have to take these screws out. The last fan filter is going to be the power supply fan filter, which is not magnetic but slides on some rails there and is easily removable. Good to see that as always, but it's become kind of a standard thing. Now, of course, if you wanted to block that fan filter, it does provide removable feet, which I forgot to mention in my 400C review, and it also has them as well. You can just remove that if you're looking at putting it on top of a desk and maybe you have a different configuration going on with your power supply unit. Not to forget any fan locations that you can have, we do have a 120mm fan available for the rear exhaust. I never use that because I typically keep a positive pressure and use some sort of rad on the top or exhaust on the top in my builds. Some final thoughts here is that just like the 400C, while there is a cutout for cable management for the basement, which makes it easier to install the cables, it doesn't look as good as if you try to tuck those up and behind. I would recommend definitely making sure that you have a USB 3.0 header on the side of the motherboard and not just one on the bottom, as that's going to hurt you aesthetically. And I would also recommend going ahead and trying to tuck all of those wires kind of behind there there. Now it will take some finagling, but it's going to look a lot cleaner and you won't have to worry about wires coming out of that little cutout. Now I wish there was a way that we could kind of maybe fill that cutout, or if there was a punch out option or something like that. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. In conclusion, if you're looking for a case that's pretty decent to build in, I would say if the 400C is a 10 out of 10 for build ease, this is probably around a 7 out of 10 for build ease. The only kind of caveat to the ease of building is going to be the kind of tempered side glass panels and the way they mount on there. The other thing I don't really like, but it's the same complaint that I had with the 400C, is the back panel and the way it mounts on. Doesn't feel sturdy, and I feel like I end up having to do that old kind of push down and hide all the cables and slide real fast and get it to lock in. I don't really like that, especially when I've seen cheaper style cases kind of have that bubble out now. So that might not be aesthetically pleasing to some people, so I could understand that as well. The back panel really only becomes a problem once you actually have anything in the 2.5-inch drive bays. If you can remove that, you pretty much have enough room to not really worry about it, but it's something to keep in mind. While a lot of people might say that tempered glass is just a phase and it's going to be out and, you know, that's just kind of the new cool thing, I don't really care about it. It's really hard to shoot and show it justice, but if you guys give it a chance, the tempered glass is just, it's beautiful. It looks so clean and so smooth. It's almost like nothing's there, especially if you put some LEDs on the inside and you look at it like in real life in person. It's almost like there's no glass in front of it when there's some LEDs or bright LEDs back there. But if you shut those off, then you kind of get like this kind of tinted look and you can't quite see into it. So I find it really intriguing and I like it a lot, especially on the front in this case. If you go with like a 360mm rad and put some fans in front of it with LEDs, or like I did, just use the 3 as intake and put some LEDs on there, it looks really, really clean, especially if you can get some sort of aura support or fan control support there. Let me know what you guys think of the case in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as well. And as always, please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/sonofatech, where there is an opportunity to not only see some of the benchmarks early, but also the potential to win some of the items that have been reviewed on the channel in the future. So thanks for watching once again, and I'll see you next Tuesday.